Hi, my name is Greg Bach, and this is a summary of Joseph Butler's Sermon 1 Upon Human Nature. This sermon was composed in the 18th century for his congregants at Rolls Chapel. It may not seem or read like any sermon you've ever heard on a Sunday morning, but it reads more like moral philosophy or moral psychology. But like any good sermon, it does begin with a Bible passage, and so the verses for this sermon are from Romans 12. It's verses 4 and 5, and it says, "For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we being many are one body in Christ, and every one members one of another." At the beginning of the sermon, he discusses biblical interpretation and the importance of context. From this, he leads on to his main point, which is to use this verse as a springboard to discuss human nature. And so, what he's concerned about here, well, what he's going to do is show how human nature is both designed to be self-interested and interested in caring for others as well. He says the comparison, so the analogy is between the parts of the body in the verse, and also between the parts of society or the individual and the society as a whole. He says, and this is section 4, the comparison will be between the nature of man as respecting self and tending to private good, his own preservation and happiness, and the nature of man as having respect to society and tending to promote public good, the happiness of that society. So now he's going to start to look at the different aspects of human nature to see what we can discover, what he can conclude from this. He says, first, there's a natural principle of benevolence. This is section 6. The natural principle of benevolence, and this is care for others, but it also includes a principle of self-love, that we care for ourselves as well. He uses several examples here that he observes that human beings have a disposition for friendships. That means we like to develop these relationships with others. We also have the capacity of showing compassion to others, and we also have paternal or filial affections and benevolence or general care or love for one another. Second, he identifies several passions or affections that are distinct from both benevolence and self-love, and those include things like the desire for esteem, the contempt of others, the love of society, and indignation or anger when we're wronged. We feel angry about that. So these are examples of these other affections. And then third, he identifies a principle that he calls reflection. He also calls it judgment. He says this is the capacity of approving or disapproving of one's behavior, one's own behavior, or the behavior of others. And the term that he applies here that will continue to come back throughout the sermons is conscience. So conscience is that human faculty, that tendency that we have to pass judgment or be critical or even be condoning or condemning the behavior of others. And as an example, he gives the case of parental care. So as parents, we naturally have an affection for our children, and this affection for our children enables us to care for them. But there are days that are difficult being a parent, and that you don't necessarily have that affection. But what kicks in at that time is your conscience that reminds you that you have a responsibility to care for these little people, right? And so this was an example of conscience. He says, this is section 9, he says that we, based on these observations, these aspects of human nature, he can conclude that it is manifest that we were made for society to promote the happiness of it, as that we were intended to take care of our own life, health, and private good. And so he infers from this that we are not just individuals to ourselves, we are not just isolated individuals who live alone and separate from others, but that we were designed to be, as he puts it, closely united with others, in relationship with others. And so any sort of moral philosophy that just focuses on self, or any type of philosophy or theology that just focuses on the individual, he identifies as absurd. So we're generally good. We're naturally good, right? We have these benevolent feelings for others. We care for others and for ourselves. So whence then is evil? Where does evil come from? And he considers this objection or this question that arises in response to his analysis of human natures or human emotions. He says, whence then is evil? His answer is that evil is a case of ungoverned passions. So we have passions that get out of whack. We have passions that someone interferes with us trying to acquire some good or some object, and then we cause harm. It's not that by nature we love harm or evil for its own sake. No, human beings love peace, happiness, and they care for others. It's just that sometimes things get out of balance. He uses the term disproportionate passions later, and so this is when evil occurs. Now, he admits, some cases in the human community that a person might actually love evil for its own sake, but these are exceptions, and he says that exceptions don't set the rule. Okay, so you can't infer a general pattern from these rare cases. So that's about it. The main idea is that he's looking at human nature, and he's concluding that human beings have this great propensity for good, for caring for others as well as for ourselves. We are concerned about our own private goods, but we naturally also are concerned about the good of the community. And we have this thing that approves or disapproves of behavior, and that's called the conscience. And he's going to elaborate more on these ideas in sermons 2 and 3. In fact, sermons 1 through 3 are meant to be read together. In fact, they have the same title. So that's all for now.